Hi everybody, welcome back to Cyberpunk 2077 on the Xbox Series S, and with yesterday's 1.6 update we finally have a performance mode on this amazing game. We can now get 60 frames a second on our little dinky Microsoft consoles at the expense of resolution. So the game uses some dynamic scaling and dynamic resolution to drop the resolution down so we can make sure we hit 60 frames a second or near as damn it, and then that is what we're kind of looking at in this video. What I'm going to do is we're going to look at the performance mode, which we're looking at now, and this is with motion blur turned on, and then we're going to roll it back to quality mode, so we'll go back to 30 frames a second, but it'll be up at 1080p, and then we'll play quality mode but with motion blur turned on, so you can see that, and then we'll do performance mode, so 60 frames a second with motion blur turned off, and then we'll go back to this mode, which I think is the best one, which is performance mode with motion blur. Because you got to remember, the Xbox Series S, it's not the most powerful next-gen console compared to the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, but it is a bargain price, and the fact that it can run Cyberpunk at virtually 60 frames a second. Okay, so we're losing a little bit of clarity, a little bit of detail in the distance and in some of the textures and things around, but it does increase the immersion incredibly. And even my gaming rig, you know, with the GTX 3070, struggles on Cyberpunk at times as well. So let's wander back towards where we live up here, and really where you really notice it is where you spin the camera. So you see how that's fairly smooth. Remember, I'm having to capture this using a capture card at 1080p 60 frames a second, so it will look better when you play it on your TV or your monitor. So what we'll do now, we'll go into the settings and we'll take motion blur off, and we'll go to quality mode. So this will be, in this particular case, it should be running at 1080p, but probably 30 frames a second. Ooh, had a bit of problem with the lights there, didn't we? But what you should notice is when I spin the camera, it's a bit more jerky. Now, when I did play Cyberpunk on my Series S before this update, I would tend to walk at quite a leisurely pace and turn my head fairly slowly, so you wouldn't get that jerkiness. But what you can see in this mode, and you might see this if you go full screen on YouTube, is that we're getting more clarity, more resolution in the distance. But if we spin, it's definitely more jerky. So let's go across the road, see if we can do it without getting knocked over. And we come over to here, so this is a pretty busy part of the city. There's loads of NPCs walking around. We've got loads of tall structures, some quite long sight lines as well. And if we spin the camera, we kind of get that jerkiness. Now what I'll do now is we'll go into the settings, and we'll just add motion blur back in, because this is how I would play, because I think it was kind of really necessary, especially when you're driving around. So now we're not really losing any of the detail when we stop, but when we spin, it just adds that blur so that it kind of smooths over the jerkiness. And I this looked pretty good to me. I was chuffed with my Xbox Series S when I was walking around Night City or driving around Night City with this sort of effect on, because it really does hide the jerkiness. I think it's a really good implementation of motion blur. I know you don't really want to do this in your Twitch first-person shooters, but in this it's fine. So what we'll do now, let's now go back to performance mode, but we'll turn the motion blur off. So motion blur going off, but we're going back to performance mode. So we should be getting those extra frames. And we lose, you can tell straight away, we lose a little bit of resolution, a little bit of clarity. But when we spin, it's a bit sharper. But I think we're still not getting true 60 frames a second in an area like this. This is one of the busiest areas in Night City, where we'll have loads of NPCs wandering around. There's loads of long distances and short distance and textures all around. It's much better than when you're running it in quality mode with motion blur off. But yeah, I think to get the full effect, I really think you have to go into the settings, you run at performance mode, and you run it with motion blur on, and I think that really helps to smooth things down and really makes it feel much better, I think, in my opinion. So let's jump in a car. we go. Let's get in. Unfortunately, I haven't got a motorbike unlocked for this particular character. Ooh. See if we can do this without getting run over. It's Night City's finest. Just looking around the cockpit in the car, it all looks much, much smoother. But in the distance, we're just losing that a little bit of that clarity. But I would always trade frames for resolution. I think frames are so much more important. There we go. So, wait. So good work, CD Projekt Red. It's great that they're still working on this game. It's sorry, fellas. It is a crying shame that they didn't wait until the game was running this well and had lots of the bugs fixed and the extra bits in the game. They should have. If they'd waited now to release it, I think we would be comparing Cyberpunk with the likes of GTA 5 and Skyrim, and we will be looking forward to lots of DLC. Unfortunately, they have said that we're only going to be getting one DLC that will be coming next year. It looks good if you've seen the trailer, but I think if it had released now, people would be going, oh wow, this is absolutely amazing, and they would have gone on to probably do as much DLC as they have for the Witcher 3 as they would have done for Cyberpunk. However, one of the things they have done is they have added official mod support in form of Red Mod. I think it's closed now, cold. Unfortunately, that at the moment looks like it's only for PC, but who knows what might happen in the future. But as it is, Cyberpunk 2077 is now much more playable on the Xbox Series S with this performance mode. And as I say, I'd recommend what you do is stick it on performance mode, stick a little bit of motion blur on, and especially if you're into fast moving combat and driving around a lot, you'll notice the difference, and it looks much, much better. Anyway, what do you think? Put your questions and comments down below. Are you now thinking about getting Cyberpunk 2077? And of course, I will see you again soon.